My name's Nancy, and at 31, you'd find me nestled in the local library, my sanctuary amidst a sea of books and dusty shelves. It wasn't glamorous, but it was my little corner of the world. I've always preferred the quiet, the understated life, away from any spotlight. Living in a small town where gossip traveled faster than the wind, my days were a predictable cycle. Wake up, work, and then home to my cozy apartment filled with secondhand finds and piles of books. My social life might have seemed non-existent to some, and I thought I was okay with that, or at least I convinced myself I was. Raymond walked into the library on an ordinary day. He was on a quest for something different to read, his smile easy and his voice warm, like a ray of sunshine piercing through the clouds. "Hey, could you help me find a book? I'm feeling adventurous," he said, his eyes twinkling with a mix of curiosity and mischief. "Sure, what genre are you interested in?" I asked, adjusting my glasses, trying my best not to get lost in his gaze. "I don't know. Surprise me," he replied, his grin hinting at the simple pleasure he found in this small challenge. That was the start of it all. Our chat soon became the highlight of my days. At first we talked about books and I would suggest titles, but gradually our conversations evolved, branching into discussions about our lives, our thoughts, our dreams. Raymond was different. He really listened, making me feel heard and valued, a sensation that was foreign yet exhilarating to me. One day, he leaned over the counter with a playful spark in his eyes. "You know, Nancy, you're the most interesting person I've met in this town. Why do you hide in here all day?" I laughed, a sound unfamiliar even to myself. "Well, where else would I go? It's not like this town is brimming with excitement," I responded. Raymond's reply came swiftly. "Maybe you just need someone to explore it with. How about dinner tonight? My treat." I hesitated, unaccustomed to such attention. "I don't know, Raymond," he quickly interjected. "Come on, what's the worst that could happen? You spend an evening out with a guy who appreciates your book recommendations. Plus, I promise to make it worth your while. You can show me this hidden gem of a town." His confidence was contagious, and despite my reservations, I agreed. "Okay, sure, but no fancy places. I don't do well with all that pomp," I warned. "Deal," he said, his smile illuminating the room. "I'll pick you up at 6. Wear something comfortable." That night truly changed everything. Raymond introduced me to parts of the town I'd never explored, even though I'd lived here all my life. He made me laugh, a real, heartfelt laugh that I hadn't realized I was capable of. He listened to my stories, my dreams, and even my fears, never making me feel insignificant. As we walked back to my apartment, he stopped, his expression serious. "Nancy, I know we've only just met, but there's something about you. You're not like anyone I've ever met. You're genuine, and in a world full of pretense, that's incredibly rare." I was speechless. No one had ever spoken to me with such sincerity. "Raymond," he gently placed a finger on my lips. "You don't have to say anything. Just know that I see you, Nancy. I see the person you truly are." Raymond always had a way of making my days shine. His affection and kindness painted my ordinary moments in vibrant colors, and with every sweet word he spoke, he made me believe in myself a little more. When he proposed, it felt surreal. His earnest eyes asked, "Marry me, Nancy. I can't picture my life without you." My heart surged with joy, and without a second thought, I whispered, "Yes." Yet, before we could dive into wedding plans, a significant hurdle loomed, meeting his parents. Raymond warned me that his parents held high expectations, but he reassured me with confidence, "They'll adore you once they see how wonderful you are." Despite his words, anxiety gnawed at me. I rummaged through my closet, aiming for an outfit that whispered modesty yet respect. On the day of the meeting, I settled on a simple blue dress, hoping it was the perfect choice. As we drove to his childhood home, Raymond seemed distracted, more interested in the music than the upcoming introduction. His relaxed demeanor only intensified my nervous anticipation. Arriving at the house, my heart pounded with the weight of Raymond's earlier warnings. The dinner that followed felt more like an interrogation than a warm family meal. Raymond's parents peppered me with questions, and I struggled to showcase my genuine love for my job at the library, hoping to make a good impression. Meanwhile, Raymond remained unusually quiet, offering little support as I maneuvered through the tense conversation. After dinner, the ride home was filled with heavy silence. I was not only disappointed by the evening, but also by Raymond's apparent indifference. I voiced my feelings. "I thought you said they'd warm up to me." Raymond's shrug and his lackadaisical, "Give it time, they just need to know you better," did little to ease my concerns. As time passed, it became clear that despite several more dinners, Raymond's parents were not becoming any fonder of me. They seemed to view me as an opportunist, a misjudgment that couldn't be further from the truth. I never cared about Raymond's money. In fact, I hardly knew he had any until he mentioned it one evening. "My parents are pretty old-fashioned," he told me. "They worry about things like money and status." One night, he came home looking unusually solemn. "Babe, we need to talk," he said, avoiding eye contact. My heart sank. "What's wrong?" I asked, feeling a knot form in my stomach. "It's my parents," he began, finally meeting my eyes. "They're insisting we sign a prenup." The words sounded harsh, unnatural. "Raymond, you know I don't care about your money, right?" He sighed, running his hands through his hair. "I know, and I don't care about it either, not when it comes to us. But they're adamant about it. They think it'll protect both of us or something." I was hurt, honestly. It felt like they were already betting on our failure. But my love for Raymond outweighed my irritation over his parents' demands or any silly document. "Fine," I said, sharper than I intended. "Let's sign it and be done with it. Your money, my money, it doesn't matter. I just want you." Raymond looked relieved, which irked me a bit. "Thank you, babe. I hate this as much as you do, but it's just a piece of paper. It won't change anything between us." So, we signed the prenup. A lawyer his parents knew drafted it, ensuring neither of us could touch the other's assets if things went south. Signing felt like declaring distrust before we'd even begun, but I pushed those thoughts aside. I was in love, and isn't love supposed to conquer all? Our wedding was simple, just as I'd always wanted. A few close friends, an intimate ceremony, and a vow of forever. I moved into Raymond's place shortly after. It was a lovely home, not too fancy, but a world away from my old apartment. Raymond's parents lived nearby, which I soon discovered meant unexpected visits that felt more like inspections than warm family interactions. Life with Raymond initially seemed like a fairy tale, but it didn't take long for the gloss to fade, revealing a grim reality underneath. The transition wasn't sudden, but the signs were there, slowly chipping away at what we had built. His mother, Sophia, was the first crack in our perfect picture. She would drop by unannounced, her eyes scanning the house as if she were taking inventory. "Remember, this is Raymond's house. Everything here is his," she'd remind me pointedly. I kept my cool, replying, "I'm well aware, Sophia. I'm not here for your son's things. I love him." She scoffed. "Love doesn't pay the bills, dear. Just remember, if you ever leave, you leave with what you came with. Nothing more." One day, she paraded around the house, pointing out every piece of furniture, every appliance, every knick-knack that belonged to Raymond. "See this couch? Raymond's. That painting? Also Raymond's. Remember, dear, in case things go south, you have no claim over any of it," she said, her voice dripping with venomous sweetness. She enjoyed reminding me of my supposed place in their world. Raymond's father, Henry, wasn't any better. He and Sophia acted like they owned our house, not just visiting. They would demand coffee when they walked in, as if reinforcing their dominance in our space. When they walked in, their criticisms were immediate. My coffee was either too weak or too strong. Then, they'd park themselves in front of the TV, expecting me to cater to their every whim. "Grab us some of those chips, will you? And maybe wash those clothes piling up in the corner while you're at it," Henry would demand without even glancing my way. The worst part was that Raymond never stood up for me. He'd chuckle along, throwing in his digs. Yeah, she's still figuring out how to get things right around here. Give her time. It was like I was living with a stranger, not the man I had married. This Raymond was someone else, someone dismissive and unsupportive. Do you even hear yourself? How can you let them treat me like this? I'd confront him once his parents had left. His response always diminished my feelings. Babe, they're just set in their ways. You know how old people are. He'd shrug it off, making it seem like I was the one making a big deal out of nothing. They don't mean anything by it. Besides, we're on their dime. Can't bite the hand that feeds, right? That comment was a slap in the face. So I was just a freeloader, the girl who had married into their little empire, expected to play by their rules or leave? My job at the library, which I cherished, was nothing but a joke to them, an additional reason for them to look down on me. Days blended into one another, each as monotonous as the last, until that unremarkable Tuesday when everything changed. I was at work, shelving books, when a sharp pain clutched my stomach, bending me double. It wasn't just stress, it was something serious. The next thing I knew, I was in the hospital, the sterile smell of antiseptic permeating the air. Alone in that hospital bed, without a single message or call from Raymond, I hit a new low. Just when I thought things couldn't sink any deeper, there was a knock at the door. A man stood there, looking completely out of place in my sterile hospital room. He was dressed in a suit, holding a briefcase. "Nancy?" he asked. "Yes, that's me. Who are you?" My voice was weak, tired from the pain and endless disappointments. "I'm Lawrence, a notary. I have something important to discuss with you," he replied, his tone formal, yet his eyes held a spark that made me listen. Curiosity piqued despite my situation. I motioned for him to continue. "It's about your great-uncle, Roy Gabriel. He recently passed away and, well, you're his sole heir, Nancy. He left you an inheritance." His words took a moment to sink in. "Are you sure you've got the right person? I haven't seen him in over 12 years. Lawrence nodded. "Quite sure. He was a private man, but always remembered you. He wanted to make sure you were taken care of." As I lay there, a mix of confusion and anticipation stirred within me. Lawrence cleared his throat, opened his briefcase, and laid out the documents before me. "Nancy, your great-uncle was a man of substantial wealth and taste. He left you quite the inheritance. We're not just talking about cash here, though there's plenty of that, $99 million to be exact." I blinked, struggling to grasp the reality of the numbers. $99 million? I repeated, my voice cracking with the enormity of it. Lawrence continued, unfazed by my shock, explaining the specifics of my great-uncle's will. But there was more to the inheritance. "You're also inheriting shares in several large companies, Nancy," Lawrence continued, his voice steady. "These weren't just any investments. They were significant stakes in some of the most stable and profitable firms around. The reality that I was becoming part owner of companies I had only ever heard about in the news felt like a fantasy." "And there's property," Lawrence added, flipping through the papers. "An old, large house in one of the most prestigious areas. It's not just any house, Nancy. It's a mansion with history, acres of land, and it's all yours now." I tried to imagine the house, the kind I had only seen in movies. It was overwhelming, to say the least. "Don't forget about the antique car," he added with a slight smile as if anticipating my reaction. "A classic, fully restored, and in mint condition. It's a collector's dream." I chuckled, the situation bordering on surreal. "An antique car, too? What am I going to do with that? I barely drive as it is." Lawrence's smile widened. "Well, it's yours to do with as you please. Maybe take it for a spin now and then." "And then there's the furniture and paintings inside the house, genuine antiques, some of them centuries old. Your great-uncle had an eye for the finer things in life." The room felt smaller, the air thicker as I tried to digest everything he was saying. "So, I've inherited a fortune, a company, a mansion. an antique car, and a collection of art and furniture? That's unbelievable. It's all yours, Nancy. Your great-uncle wanted to make sure you were well taken care of. It seems he saw something special in you." Special? I felt anything but special, lying in a hospital bed after the worst few months of my life. Yet here I was, a millionaire many times over, entrusted with a legacy I didn't even know existed. "Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. This is a lot to take in. I don't even know where to start," I admitted, feeling a mix of gratitude, disbelief, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. "We'll take it one step at a time," he assured me. "I'm here to help you through the entire process." As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Raymond's name flashed on the screen for the first time in days. Ignoring it, I turned back to Lawrence. "What happens now?" "We'll need to process some paperwork, but the inheritance is yours. Your life is about to change, Nancy." Change it did. After the unexpected windfall landed in my lap, Raymond and his folks seemed to turn a new leaf, or so it appeared. Their daily hospital visits were like scenes from a sappy movie. Raymond, who couldn't be bothered to check on me before, now hovered constantly, adjusting my blanket with a concerned furrow on his brow. "How are you feeling today, love?" he'd ask, his voice dripping with a sweetness that didn't reach his eyes. His mother, Sophia, was even more theatrical, if possible. "Darling, I'm going to cook your favorite lasagna when you get back home. Just wait," she said, her smile wide but not quite reaching her eyes. It was all too much, too sudden. Yet I played along, smiling weakly, thanking them for their care. But suspicion gnawed at me, urging me to look beyond their act. So, one day, I did just that. After their routine visit, I mustered the strength to slip out of my bed and follow them, my heart pounding with every step. Hiding behind a corner, I listened in as their true selves unfolded with no audience to perform for. Their laughter was the first thing I heard, harsh and revealing. The harshness of their words echoed in the sterile hospital corridor. "Can you believe how easy this is? She's so gullible, falling right into our trap," Raymond chuckled, his amusement a stark contrast to the setting. Sophia, ever the strategist, added with a sharp tone, "Just make sure she's fully committed, Raymond. Once you two start a family, she'll never be able to leave. Then we'll have control over her and her fortune." Their words, cruel and calculated, didn't shock me. Disappointment? Absolutely. But surprise? Not at all. They had shown their true colors, and I was done painting over them with shades of denial. As I made my way back to my hospital bed, their mocking words ignited a determination within me. They saw me merely as a ticket to wealth, a tool to secure their future, but I was not going to play their game any longer. Lying in that bed, my mind raced as a clear, firm plan took shape. I was going to turn the tables on Raymond and his manipulative family. They underestimated me and saw me as weak, but they were about to discover just how wrong they were. Once discharged and back at the house that was supposed to be my home, I felt like an outsider. Raymond and his parents were there, their faces adorned with feigned concern and eager anticipation. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension. Raymond broke the silence with a tone that tried to mask his greed with sweetness. "Babe, you're home. How are you feeling? We've been so worried." Ignoring the lump in my throat, I met his gaze squarely, seeing the man I once thought I knew. "I'm feeling better, thanks, but we need to talk. All of us," I said, my voice steady despite the inner turmoil. Sophia, ever the actress, stepped forward, her hands clasped as if in prayer. "Of course, dear. We're here for you, whatever you need." It was now or never. Taking a deep breath, I laid out my stance. "I'm filing for divorce, Raymond, and before you ask, no, you won't see a dime of my inheritance." The room fell silent, the air seemingly sucked out of it. Raymond's face paled, his mask slipping to reveal the panic underneath. "Divorce? But why? I thought we were happy." The word happy tasted bitter in my mouth. "Happy? You, your mom, and your dad have made my life miserable. You've treated me like a servant, not a wife. And now suddenly you're concerned about me because I have something you want. Raymond stammered, struggling to find the words. But Sophia, always quick, jumped in. This is nonsense. We've always treated you like family. You're imagining things, dear. Rolling my eyes, I pulled out the prenuptial agreement from my bag, waving it in front of them. This is what saved me. You thought you could manipulate me, but I'm not the naive girl you took me for. Henry, silent until now, finally spoke, his voice a mix of anger and defeat. You'll regret this. We're your family. No, you were never my family. A family doesn't treat one of their own like dirt and then turns sweet when money comes into the picture. I'm done here. Moving into my place was the breath of fresh air I desperately needed. The apartment was small and cozy, a stark contrast to the life I had just left behind. It was a new beginning, away from the manipulation and greed, a chance to finally breathe and reclaim my independence. Leaving behind that chapter of my life was more than just moving to a new apartment. It was my declaration of independence, a fresh start on my terms. Almost immediately, the phone calls began. Raymond was the first, his voice thick with desperation, trying to pierce the silence I had welcomed. Nancy, please, you've got to come back. We can work this out. I know we can, he pleaded. But his words fell on deaf ears. I was resolute, and no amount of begging would sway me. Raymond, it's over. I'm not coming back. You need to accept that, I replied, my voice leaving no room for misunderstanding. Not long after, Sophia made her attempt, her voice a toxic mix of anger and manipulation. Ungrateful after everything we've done for you. You owe us, Nancy. You're making a huge mistake. Owe you? For what, Sophia? For making me feel like nothing more than a burden? No, I don't owe you anything. Hanging up on her felt like shedding a heavy weight, the final snip of the ties that bound me to a life of misery. The divorce was a relief, a clean break from a past that had threatened to consume me. Through friends, I heard about the fallout between Raymond and his parents. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very document they had insisted on, the prenuptial agreement, was now the source of their family strife. With my great-uncle's inheritance securely in my name, I found purpose and a way to give back. A significant portion went to charities that mattered to me, causes that would make a difference in the world. But it was the bookstore that became my passion project, a cozy haven for lovers of old and rare books. It was my way of reconnecting with the world on my terms. My journey hadn't been easy, fraught with challenges and tough decisions, but standing in my bookstore, surrounded by the stories of countless others, I knew I had found my happy ending. It wasn't just about moving on from Raymond and his family's manipulation. It was about rediscovering who I was and what I loved. Here's to fresh starts, I murmured to myself, raising a glass in the quiet of the evening after locking up the bookstore. The path before me was uncharted, shrouded in mystery, yet it belonged to me alone, brimming with potential and the hopeful prospect of new joys. With each step forward, I embraced the journey, ready to uncover the opportunities and happiness that lay ahead.